What's up, everybody? Start times for the entire SEC schedule released. At least you know if you're playing in the morning or possibly afternoon or night, who got the best draw and who drew the short end of the stick. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along on today's show. We'll run through some of the takeaways from the SEC schedule announcement on, look, now you can plan your traveling. If you want to go to, if you got an early game, to plan for that, or if you're going to stay overnight, possibly afternoon, night game. I like it. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And this episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right. Following that May 30th announcement for all the start times for the first 3 weeks of the season, ESPN has released the approximate start times for the remainder of the 2024 SEC football schedule, with all SEC games exclusively on ABC or the ESPN family of platforms for the first time ever, and designating windows for all games after week 3 prior to the start of the season. Is a new benefit for the new conference rights agreement between the SEC and the ESPN. So all SEC-controlled game times, starting with week 4 on September 21st and on, will have set television windows with select games tagged as flex between afternoon or night games. So basically, here's how it works. If a game was deemed early, that means it's starting at either 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern in that time zone, or, sometime in that hour. So it could be 11 a.m., it could be 11:30, it could be 11:45, whatever. It's going to start at that time. And if you're in the Eastern time zone, it's same thing, noon, 12:30, 12:45. The afternoon start would be a 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern, or, and basically an hour between there. So you could be a 2:30 Central, it could be a 3:30 Central, and the East, it could be a 3:30 Central, 4:30 Eastern. You get what I'm saying. And then nighttime, somewhere between the 6 and 8 Eastern time zone time. So for all the listed windows, the exact start time with such windows will be confirmed no later than 6 days prior, unless otherwise noted. So let's dive into it, and I'll give you my biggest takeaways from what we got from the schedule here. And so we'll start. I'm just going to jump around. We'll just go to a couple different schools and kind of give you general takeaways. All right, for Alabama, you get a couple games getting labels. For instance, Alabama, well, we already knew the home game against Georgia's a night game, so that's a big one at Bryant-Denny Stadium. They'll play Western Kentucky and USF at night to start of the season. Of course, the game at Wisconsin is 11 a.m. That's on the road. But as far as the SEC schedule, after the Georgia game, they will play an afternoon game at Vandy. So at least for Bama fans, you get to spend a little time in Nashville in the morning. It's not going to be 11 a.m. It'll be afternoon, so probably in that 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central time slot. For South Carolina, the next week, home against South Carolina, that has been deemed an 11 a.m. Central kick. So, Bama will play South Carolina at Bryant-Denny Stadium for an early breakfast and keg and eggs game, as we call them. And then we know Mercer will be a 1 p.m. Central game. But all the rest of Bama's games get the label of flex. And I saw a couple people saying, look, if you're really going to put 5 of 8 Bama's games as flex, it's a bit much for hyping up this unveiling, right? Like, everybody wants to get an idea on, are these going to be night games, whatever. At least if you're Bama, you're really only playing 2 11 a.m. games. So one is a road game at Wisconsin, and the other one is home against South Carolina. All your other games are either going to be in the afternoon or at night. So rest easy, Bama fans, on that one. LSU is a very interesting one. Only one confirmed day game for LSU, and that is at South Carolina. But 6 confirmed night games for LSU so far. And a few of their flex games, UCLA, Alabama, and Oklahoma, all in Death Valley. There's a good chance all those games end up at night. And if that were to happen, that would mean for the first time in a long time, LSU would have a schedule of all night home games in Death Valley. Look, they do the big ceremonious little, thing where they say the sun has set in the western sky. It is now night in Death Valley. That's what they always had to do, like in the fourth quarter for those 2:30 CBS games. We'll say goodbye to that. I mean, now you're talking about potentially all night games at LSU. We got to think LSU Alabama is probably going to be a night game. And Oklahoma at LSU, I guess it could be afternoon, but that just screams, Oklahoma's first time in Baton Rouge. Like that should be a night game. The UCLA one is interesting week 4. UCLA at LSU. You got to think maybe they want to pander to the West Coast audience a little bit, so make it later. You play at 2:30 Central. That's, whatever. It's a noon game out there on the West Coast. So I don't know. Maybe they try to maximize it, move a little bit later, but just found that very interesting. LSU really lucked out with the draw of some of these game times. Texas A&M, they have 7 games at Kyle Field this season. 3 of them are said to be night games. 2 are guaranteed to be before noon, and then 2 others will be flex. So we know they're going to play Notre Dame in the opener at night. That one's on ABC. We know the early games. They will play McNeese at 11:45 Central, and then they will play Mizzou in the middle of the season, 11 a.m. So that's a big one. Mizzou really lucked out there. We'll talk about Mizzou a little bit later, but they lucked out having to go to College Station, but getting the early 11 a.m. game. That's a lot easier than playing a night game at Kyle Field. Other notes from A&M, they will play Arkansas in the afternoon. LSU will be a flex game. At Auburn is a flex game. And the game against Texas, I'm surprised they didn't just go ahead and designate A&M versus Texas a night game. That gets the flex designation. So that one could be an afternoon game, potentially. Ole Miss, man, I'm pissed if I'm an Ole Miss fan. You've got 4 early games. Home against Kentucky, home against Oklahoma, at Arkansas, and at Florida, all designated early time slots for Ole Miss. And there's no guarantee that Vaught Hemingway Stadium will host an SEC night game this year. So our buddy Brad said it's baffling, frankly. Ole Miss fans have proven time and time again, it just doesn't matter. We'll show up whether it's an early game, afternoon game, night game, whatever, but thought they would reward Ole Miss a little bit with that and give them some more night games, knowing that, it's supposed to be a really good season for them. They're loaded and they get a lot of early time slots. Mississippi State, they will get an early game against Florida at home. At Texas will be the afternoon. At Georgia's a flex. Their other games at home, they will get Arkansas early. Their really only night game guaranteed at home it's not at home. At Tennessee is a night game, but all the rest kind of stuck in either flex or earlier afternoon games. I saw one Mississippi State fan said, well, like 2 of our winnable games end up at 11 a.m. The home against Florida and home against Arkansas. So, but hey, Jeff Lebby, Blake Shapen, Mississippi State, come ready to play. Maybe y'all can win those. Kentucky, I did see their game against Ole Miss early at 11 a.m. I think they luck out in that one. Maybe can catch the Rebels sleepwalking. Kentucky at Florida is a flex. I think that should be a night game. Auburn at Kentucky is already a night game. That one's an intriguing one. Kentucky at Tennessee will be at night. And then Kentucky at Texas will be a flex. Louisville at Kentucky will be a flex. Their only other early games are home against Ohio and Murray State. So, of course, they get South Carolina in the afternoon at home, and then they get Georgia at night at home. But it's very early for Kentucky. At Auburn, Oklahoma at Auburn in the afternoon. I wish that one had been a night game, but it is what it is. At least it's afternoon and not early. But Auburn does get a couple early games. Auburn at Mizzou early, and then Vandy at Auburn early. The Vandy one I kind of get, but Auburn at Mizzou, maybe if things are going well, Hugh Freeze got this offense humming, maybe they can sneak an upset at Mizzou in that one. But Auburn at Georgia will be a flex. A&M at Auburn is a flex, and Auburn at Alabama is a flex. Can we just put the Iron Bowl at night? Like, just set it permanently at night? Why do we have to say, it could be afternoon? They get a night game. Florida, they get some early games at Mississippi State, at Texas. That's lame. Florida at Texas at 11 a.m. And then at Ole Miss, that one's set for 11 a.m. Florida at Ole Miss. They do have flex games at Tennessee, home for Kentucky, and home for LSU. So we'll see if Florida ends up with some night games in the swamp. Arkansas, they get LSU at night. That's a good one. They will be at Mississippi State early. They will host Ole Miss early. Those are back-to-back, October 26th and November 2nd. And then 2 weeks after that, they will host Texas early. That's super lame. Texas going to Arkansas, and it's an early 11 a.m. game. Talking about Arkansas fans out there, they're not happy. Not a lot of night games for Arkansas this year, but some of them say, look, we got to be better. If we're better on the football field, maybe we'll get some more primetime games next year. Texas. We know Georgia at Texas will be either an afternoon or night game. Again, wish they would just deem that one a night game. Hosting Florida early, then Arkansas early. November 9th and November 16th. Those would be back-to-back weeks at Darrell K. Royal Stadium, hosting at 11 a.m. Central. Again, they will get Kentucky and at A&M to end the season. Both of those games flexed, so they could be afternoon or night. Oklahoma, they get Tennessee in their first ever SEC game in Norman. That's flex, so it could be afternoon or night. Then they get 2 straight afternoon games after that, at Auburn and then home for, or rather against Texas in Dallas. Then they get an early game against South Carolina on October 19th. A week later, they are early at Ole Miss the next week, but that one may work in Oklahoma's favor. Like we said, getting Ole Miss at 11 a.m. Central, maybe Oklahoma catches them napping. And then the rest of the way, at Mizzou, home for Bama, and at LSU, those are all flexed for Oklahoma. Tennessee, a lot of flexes for them. Florida at Tennessee is a flex. Bama at Tennessee is a flex. Kentucky at Tennessee will be at night. Mississippi State at Tennessee will be at night. Tennessee at Georgia, that's a flex. So really, the only guaranteed early game for Tennessee is November 30th at Vandy and their opener against Chattanooga, which is early. And I guess the UTEP game, that one's already a 1 p.m. Eastern game scheduled. But I think that kind of works out in Tennessee's favor. Mizzou versus Vandy is a flex. That one should have just been deemed an 11 a.m. game. But the next 2 weeks, Mizzou's got at A&M is at 11 a.m. Central. Auburn versus Mizzou is already at 11 a.m. Central. At Bama is flex versus Oklahoma is a flex. And then afternoon at South Carolina, at Mississippi State, and versus Arkansas, not a ton of night games for Missouri. So again, Missouri in the same boat as Ole Miss, kind of not getting rewarded with a ton of night games right off the bat. Then Georgia, how crazy is this? Georgia's first home night game in Athens may not be until October 5th against Auburn. It's a flex right now. They do have the week 2 home game against Tennessee Tech, but that's already scheduled for 2 p.m. Eastern. But crazy to think Georgia could go that long without getting a home night game in Athens. They will play home against Mississippi State. That's a flex that could be at night. Home against Tennessee is a flex, could be at night. At Texas, that's a flex. And then we know Georgia Tech plays at Georgia at the end of the season. That's already scheduled as a night game. So by my count, that is 4 early games for Ole Miss. I mean, they really drew the short end of the straw there. Ole Miss gets 4 early games, 3 early games for Arkansas, 3 for Florida, 3 for South Carolina, 3 early games for Vandy, and 3 for Auburn, 2 early games for Texas and Texas A&M. And how about LSU? Only 1 early game for LSU all season, and it's on the road. So, like I said, if we're just going off of the basics here, I think Ole Miss kind of got screwed with game times, and I think LSU got the luck of the draw. So there you have it. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we'll do a quick recruiting roundup with some recruiting tidbits. That's coming your way here in just a second. Well, first, I want to remind you guys this episode presented to you by our friends over at the Game Time app. Look, Game Time makes getting tickets easy and faster, whether it's NBA Finals tickets, college football tickets, whatever you're looking for. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to tip-off or kickoff. Killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time is going to take the guesswork out of buying those NBA tickets, college tickets, NFL, whatever it is. Last-minute deals, you could save up to 60% off buying last minute for sporting events. They also have those all-in pricing toggle. It's like a little button you push on the app. You toggle that feature, shows your total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Because honestly, look, when you buy tickets, sometimes they're going to add fees and all that kind of stuff. And if you want to avoid that, the all-in pricing is the way to go. That's how I've done when I've used the Game Time app. Super easy. The total that it shows you right there when you press all-in pricing, boom, that's the total you're going to pay. You can get a panoramic view from your seat. Also love that. You can see everything that to expect from your seat before you get there. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets or whatever you want to get with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege. Get $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. It is last-minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to every dayers. Come on back and check us out. We have a very special guest later in the week. Kyle Parker, LSU wide receiver, is going to join the show. Been doing a nice series, catching up with different players across the conference. We've had Arkansas quarterback Taylon Green on. We've had Oklahoma wide receiver Nick Anderson. We've had Tennessee wide receiver Chris Brazzell. And now we're going to have LSU wide receiver Kyle Parker. So hopefully you guys check that out. And hey, for your second watch or listen, check out Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7 streaming all the biggest top sports stories of the day. Search Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. All right, we got to get into some recruiting tidbits here as we dive back into it, because we had some recruiting announcements these last couple of days. A lot of guys been making visits and that sort of thing. So first stop, we jump over to Alabama as Mal Waldrep, number 34 interior offensive lineman in On 3. Grew up watching Alabama. He has a legacy, dreamed of playing in Bryant-Denny Stadium, and that dream will be a reality. His dad played for the Tide from 98 to 2002, and he will follow in his dad's footsteps. Mal Waldrep announcing on Wednesday, or Tuesday rather, that he is going to be a member of the Crimson Tide. He said, "It's a dream come true. It's been my dream since I was little." He said things were chaotic since Alabama offered back in October. It was Coach Nick Saban and Coach Eric Wofford at the beginning, and then it went to Coach Kalen DeBoer and Coach Scott Huff. He said, "I didn't know a lot about them at first, and then Coach Huff left, so I sat back, took my time, and I'm thankful I did. Things developed really quick with Coach Kapilovich, and Coach DeBoer," he said, "is a winner, a great man, been very successful everywhere he's been. Looking forward to playing for him." So 6'5", 325 pounds from Phoenix City, Alabama, chooses the Tide over the likes of Clemson, Florida, and Tennessee. Mal Waldrep, the number 34 interior O-lineman, according to On 3, is a member of the Crimson Tide. The Tide also picked up 4-star interior O-lineman Michael Carroll earlier this week. He chose the Tide over Georgia and Michigan. Number 27 overall prospect, the number 2 offensive lineman, and the number 2 player from the state of Pennsylvania. He checks in as the number 183rd overall player from the On 3 industry ranking. So there you go. That's big-time offensive lineman, 6'6", 310 pounds. Had an official visit to Tuscaloosa over the weekend, and now he is heading there. He did talk with On 3. He said, "Look, they have Tyler Booker there right now. They said they see me being a J.C. Latham type. Sounds great to me." So Alabama adding to the trenches there for Kalen DeBoer and company. All right, over at Missouri, 3-star safety. I'm going to say it's Dyllon Williams, Dyllon, unless he goes by Dyllon, but it's not a Comedy Central skit here. So we'll say Dyllon Williams committing to Missouri. Had offers from Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Kentucky. He's number 923 overall prospect, number 66 safety in the class of 2025. He's 6'2", and is the second pledge this week for Eli Drinkwitz. They did pick up Texas Fort Worth native 4-star O-lineman Henry Fanuku, a top 400 prospect. He committed on Monday. Fanuku is 6'4", 295 pounds, was on campus in Columbia over the weekend and logged his commitment. So Mizzou's class now has 9 commitments, ranked number 19 in the nation, number 10 in the SEC, according to On 3. It's crazy because Mizzou came into April with 0 commitments in this cycle, and then that picked up quickly. They had 7 prospects picked Mizzou in that time, and one of them really big, 5-star quarterback Matt Zollers committed back on April 4th. And since that time, they have collected a lot of guys, including 3-star defensive lineman Jason Dowell, and it's been a lot of guys picking up since then. So congrats to Eli Drinkwitz and company getting some work in. Over at Texas, they got a commitment from Missouri City, Fort Bend Marshall, 3-star corner Caleb Chester committed to Texas on Tuesday. Chose the in-state Longhorns over A&M, TCU, Arkansas, and LSU. He's the number 599 overall prospect and number 61 corner, according to On 3 Sports. Made several visits this offseason to the 40 acres and decided to commit to the Longhorns. So that gives Sark and UT 11 commitments in their 2025 class now, joining class headlined by Louisiana native Calvary Baptist 4-star running back James Simon, along with 4-star athlete Lance Jackson and several others. KJ Lacey, 4-star quarterback from Saraland, Alabama, committed to the Texas Longhorns. How about over at Auburn? Hugh Freeze getting a commitment from three-star athlete Bruce Deas. Participated in Auburn's weekend camp on Saturday, was offered by the Tigers on Monday, and he is committed. He told On3 Sports, Auburn offered me. Coach DJ Durkin told me he didn't know where to put me, but that he wants me. He told me I could play linebacker, star, whatever it is, I'm going to play somewhere. I was excited, and it means a lot. He's the nation's number 556 prospect, number 26 athlete, number 18 recruit from the state of Maryland. Over at Georgia, earlier this week, they got four-star defensive lineman Christian Garrett. Said that Georgia's the team he grew up following. It's a great feeling to commit to the Bulldogs, but just finished up his official visit to Athens over the weekend, committed to Georgia, nation's number 128 overall prospect, number 16 recruit from the state of Georgia. And lastly, over at A&M, Mike Elko and the Aggies picking up some recruits on the recruiting trail in the last week or so. Four-star corner Adonis Curry committed to the Aggies over the likes of Miami, Nebraska, and Texas. Currently ranks as the number 65 player in the nation, the number 7 cornerback, and the number 3 player from the state of California. Said that he likes the new staff at A&M, feels like he was a priority for them, and talked with Coach Elko, Jay Bateman, Jordan Peterson, among others. Aggies also picked up a recent commitment, 3-star offensive lineman from Dickinson. Let's see. Well, yeah, lost her name. Thomas is the last name, but he is a 3-star recruit. That's what happens when you put your notes together and can't read your own handwriting. But either way, he is heading to the Aggies. 3-star recruit coming as the number 607 player nationally, number 50 interior lineman. Tyler Thomas is his name. So congrats to Tyler Thomas. Apologies not getting your name in there. There you have it. That's the latest recruiting roundup. We'll get our buddy Brian Smith in here real soon to give us a full SEC roundup recruiting tidbit, because look, it's a lot of kids, a lot of names. It's hard to keep track sometimes. All right, more Locked On SEC coming your way here in just a second. Keep it locked right here. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC, and I want to talk some college baseball with you guys before we call it a show. We've got the Men's College World Series stage set, so let's take a look at that, and it is SEC versus ACC. We got 4 teams from the SEC, 4 teams from the ACC. If only Georgia could have knocked off NC State, they could not get it done. So here's how the schedule shapes up. On Friday, 1 p.m. Central, 2 Eastern, we will get North Carolina against Virginia. And then the night game on Friday at 6 Central, 7 Eastern, it will be the 1 seed Tennessee against Florida State. So that's the opening round. Then on Saturday, 1 Central, 2 Eastern, we will get the 2 seed Kentucky against 10 seed NC State. And then Saturday night, 6 p.m. Central, 7 Eastern, it'll be the 3 seed Texas A&M Aggies taking on the Florida Gators. So that's our SEC on SEC game. And all those games will air on ESPN. So it'll be fun to see what team from the SEC can become victorious. Now, quick note here. It is Vols, Cats, Gators, and Aggies all going to Omaha. But Tennessee, top seed, losing a pitcher. A.J. Russell will undergo Tommy John surgery to repair a torn UCL. Usually a 12 to 14-month recovery time. Tony Vitello told the media last week that Russell was likely shut down for the rest of the season with an injury. Tennessee won 2 out of 3 against Evansville. But Russell was not active either of the past 2 weekends in the NCAA tournament. He pitched twice at the SEC tournament towards the end of May after missing 2 months due to various forms of general arm soreness. But he left the loss to Ole Miss back on March 23rd with discomfort in his throwing arm. Opened the season in the starting rotation as Tennessee's Game 1 starter was dominant in his debut against Texas Tech in the season opener in that Shriners Classic down in Arlington. But Tennessee, like I said, will begin College World Series play this weekend against Florida State, who swept Connecticut over the weekend. So there you have it. Excited. Best of luck to all the teams out there. I've heard a lot of folks from Kentucky are heading out there. A lot of Aggies making the trip. A lot of Tennessee fans and Florida fans as well. Florida, it's old hat, man. They go almost every year. Coach Sullivan's done a great job there. But going to be fun to see if somebody from the SEC can win it all. Come on, they got a streak going here. well, we had Vandy, then we had Ole Miss or Mississippi State, then Ole Miss, and then LSU recently. So need to see somebody from the SEC keep this train rolling would certainly be fun. Another guy, see if he can get back to Omaha. How about this news coming out that former LSU baseball coach Paul Mainieri has been named the new head coach at South Carolina. AD Ray Tanner announcing Tuesday that Paul Mainieri going to become the 31st head coach in the history of Gamecock baseball. He also announced the retention of associate head coach Monty Lee and the addition of pitching coach and recruiting coordinator Terry Rooney, who previously coached under Mainieri back when he was the LSU head coach, and was actually Terry Rooney came back to LSU this past year, was coaching under Jay Johnson. So a little bit of a poach there for the former LSU coach. Of course, he knows Ray Tanner very well. They go back many years. Ray Tanner saying Paul Mainieri is an outstanding coach, teacher, competitor, someone I've known for many, many years. One can judge his success through as many championships, both SEC and NCAA, but I see the impact he's made on young men and can have that same success here. Now, it is a little bit of a concern because, you know, in the day and age where a lot of people are getting younger, Paul Mainieri is 66 years old. So you kind of go in the opposite direction here. Not really a guy that, you know, you expect to be there for a decade in Columbia, but can he have a good 4 or 5 year run there? Certainly. And Mainieri's the active leader in career wins in Division I. Took LSU, won the national championship in 2009 with LSU, finished runner-up in 2017. They fell short against Florida, but he's made 6 College World Series appearances, 5 with LSU, 1 with Notre Dame, 4 SEC championships, 6 SEC tournament championships, and 10 NCAA regional championships. It's been quite a run in his career, and of course, going to try to pick up and get them a little bit further than Mark Kingston was able to do. 7 seasons as the coach of the Gamecocks, finished 217, 155 overall, but 83 and 96 in the SEC was Mark Kingston. So Mainieri said it's a wonderful opportunity, coach at a prestigious and tradition-rich college like the South Carolina baseball program. Paul Mainieri spent 15 seasons at LSU and has guided his team to 46 team championships, 31 at LSU, 15 at Notre Dame. So best of luck to Coach Mainieri. Just did not see him leaving the retired life and getting back into coaching. By the way, LSU will play South Carolina next season, so that'll be awkward. Mainieri versus Jay Johnson in that series. A couple other tidbits here before we call it a show. Florida and Kevin O'Sullivan, they're picking up a transfer for next season. Their season hasn't even ended yet, and they're picking up former Miami standout Blake Sear, announcing on social media he is going to switch sides in that Florida rivalry and head to go play for the Gators. He was freshman All-America this year, being named to the All-ACC freshman team, played in 60 games, 59 starts, batted .305, had a .427 on-base percentage, .620 slugging, and became just the 4th freshman in Miami history, hit 17 home runs. Joining this group, how about this group of guys? Phil Lane, Pat Burrell, and Ryan Braun. Pretty good grouping there. But he had 18 multi-hit games, 19 multi-RBI games in his freshman year, and he's going to be a Florida Gator next year. That's a big pickup. Meanwhile, I saw LSU, they're going to lose their outfielder Paxton Kling. He entered the transfer portal yesterday, played in 61 games this season. But LSU adding in the portal, adding Indiana State slugger Luis Hernandez, a utility slugger who batted .315 across his 3 years with the program, 578 career bats, 32 home runs. He scored 118 runs, 128 runs batted in. And looks like they say he's played catcher, first base, DH mostly, played an occasional game in the outfield. So an ultimate utility guy. We'll see where he plays for LSU next year. And LSU did pick up a reliever as well from South Florida, Chandler Dorsey. Closed out games for USF this year, and he will be heading to Baton Rouge. So there you have it. That's the latest SEC baseball news. I had a lot of tidbits there. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Come on back and keep checking us out. Hey, for your second listen, check out Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's called Locked On Sports Today. Find it on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Hey, check us out on Friday. LSU wide receiver Kyle Parker going to join the show and our continuing series of catching up with current players around the SEC. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. We'll talk to you guys later this week. Stick around with us.